let's go ahead and start by drawing our pumpkin pie. So I'm going to take a straight line across the bottom, and then I'm going to make that into a rectangle. So I'm going to bring it up on both sides and then all the way back across. This is going to be the side of our pumpkin pie where we're going to put our value scale. Now let's make the top part. So I'm going to bring a diagonal line up. See, that's pointing up. And then I'm going to bring that back down to touch my rectangle on the other side, but I'm going to leave a little spot open for some whipped cream. Okay, it doesn't really matter how you draw your whipped cream. I just did like a crazy bumpy sort of weird shape, and then I brought it back down. Now let's put on our crust, which I just used a wavy diagonal line, and then you're done with your piece of pumpkin pie. But we do want it to be sitting on a plate, so let's just bring a big oval shape down and around and back over and connect. So now that we have our plate, let's give ourselves a table line so we know that it is sitting on something and not just floating in the air. Good, now that's all we're going to draw. Let's talk about our value scales. So I'm going to go ahead and color the top part of my pumpkin pie. You can use any kind of orange you want. I used my yellow orange, but you could also use a different one. It just depends on how you want your pumpkin pie to look. All right, now let's get out our brown, and we're just going to do a regular value scale. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first add a little bit of shading right up underneath my whipped cream to show that it's sitting on top of my pumpkin pie. It's going to have just a little shadow underneath. Then I'm going to take that same brown, and on the rectangular part, that's where we're going to color from dark to light. So I'm going to start dark on that side and bring it over. So first we're going to press really hard with our brown, and as we bring it over towards the side, I'm just lightening up on my pressure so that my brown is going to appear a little bit lighter. By the time I get all the way over to the other side, I just want to be coloring really lightly with my brown. If it's not dark enough for you, you can always go back over it. I kind of wanted to make mine a little bit darker on the side. And then again, I lightened up as I went over towards the right. When you're done with your value scale, we're just going to go back over that with our same orange, just pressing, the same amount that you did on the top so it matches. But since we did a value scale, it'll give our pumpkin pie a nice realistic look. It'll give it a nice shading on the side, and it'll look really good. But that's just one type of shading that we're going to do. Next, we'll talk about option number 2, which is cross-hatching. So our next type of shading that we're going to be doing is called cross-hatching. Now this is where you make lines to give off an implied shadow. So what we're going to do is, if we want it to be really, really nice and dark, we're going to add more lines that crisscross each other. This is going to make your pumpkin pie look darker. As we go over to the other side, still coloring with value because we want to go dark to light, we're gonna lessen up on our lines. The more spaced out they are, the lighter your area is gonna look. If you have more lines, it's gonna look darker. So by the time I get over to the other side of my pumpkin pie, I'm just not gonna put as many lines. I might not crisscross them as much. So you see how the left side is really nice and dark because I have all of those lines that are crisscrossing, and as it goes over to the right, I just make less lines. Not too hard. All right, and we're gonna go back over that with our orange, just so we know that it looks like a nice little piece of pumpkin pie. And once we finish this, we will talk about our last option of adding value. Okay, our last option is called stippling. And this is where you use little dots to create value. So similar to crosshatching, which has more lines, on stippling, the more dots you have, the darker an area is going to appear. So if you want it to be nice and dark, make sure you add tons of little dots. As I go over and I start lightening up, I'm just adding less dots. I'm spacing them out a little bit more. Now I will tell you, this one takes some patience because it does take a while, and it can also get a little annoying and drive your family crazy because it's going to be pretty loud too. Just make sure you're going nice and gently with your dots, you're placing them where you want them to be, and remember, as you go over to the side, just add less dots. Hopefully your family is not going too crazy at this point, and we can get some orange and go over that, and then we will finish up our picture. Now it's up to you which value technique you want to use. The easiest is probably the regular value scale because really it's just how hard or light you're coloring, but you could also do cross-hatching or stippling. It is up to you. Okay, so the next part that I'm going to do is I'm going to get a gray, which can be your pencil or a crayon like I'm using, and I'm just adding a little bit of shading to my whipped cream because I want to make it look more realistic. My pumpkin pie looks pretty realistic, and now my whipped cream is going to match because I kind of just wanted to show those crazy twists and turns that whipped cream can have, especially when you pour it out of like a can. It can be really, really funny looking. So here is my whipped cream, and then I'm going to get my black, and I'm going to add a little bit of shading right underneath my pumpkin pie because I want to make it look like it is sitting on a plate. We don't want it to look too flat. We want it to look really, really nice and realistic. So I just brought my shading down the length of my pumpkin pie, and I also took it out a little bit right behind my crust of my pumpkin pie because I want it to look like it's going back in space. It's a big old piece of pie. It's not too skinny. It's the perfect amount for Thanksgiving. Okay, let's talk about our tablecloth and our wall. So I just picked a plain old color for my tablecloth, but sometimes people will use special tablecloths for their Thanksgiving meals. So if you want to decorate yours in a fancy way, you can do leaves, you can do acorns, you could do deer, squirrels, foxes, however you want to decorate your tablecloth. That's completely up to you. But we do want to make it look like our plate is sitting on our tablecloth. So what I did is I just picked a darker color. Since I did pink for my tablecloth, I picked a purple, and I just did a little bit of shading right underneath my plate just to help it look less flat. We want it to look more realistic, like it's an actual real plate, and actual real plates make shadows no matter what they're sitting on. So here you can see me doing that. But if you decide to decorate your tablecloth, maybe you want to do this with a gray or just a regular pencil and give it just a little bit of shading. and then you can do your wall space behind whatever color you want. You could draw windows back there, you could do pictures like they're hanging on the wall. It's completely up to you how you want to customize your pumpkin pie. Don't forget to send me a picture, and I hope you guys had as much fun as I did.